Every one of you have seen Scarecrow in life, but today I will tell one of my paranormal experience regarding Scarecrow that almost took my life. My name is Ethan Miller. I am an American guy from Omaha, Nebraska, and in 2022 I was 34 and working odd contract jobs that keep you in the rural dark more than you would ever admit at a dinner table. Wildlife control, vacant property checks, problem calls where people do not want the police yet, but they also do not want to be alone with what they saw. I drove long winters with the heater humming and podcasts on, cycling through scary stories and horror stories, because silence on two-lane roads can make your own thoughts sound like footsteps. It was midwinter in 2022 when a deputy from Gage County called me about an abandoned farmhouse south of Beatrice. Beatrice is a real Nebraska town, and that stretch of county road is the kind of real that feels unreal once the sun drops. The deputy said neighbors were spooked by a scarecrow that had appeared overnight in a cut field, not a cute fall decoration, not straw and denim. A tall figure in a dark coat, arms spread like a man caught mid-surrender. People said it moved positions between days. Deputies went out twice, found no tracks, and never saw it in person. The neighbors were getting jumpy, and the deputy wanted a neutral set of eyes before somebody did something stupid with a rifle and a bad assumption. I drove down in my old Ford with salt crust on the floor mats and a thermos in the cup holder. At a stoplight, my phone tried to lure me into the usual trending noise. World Cup draw chatter, a BO7 Zombies glitch clip, a Divinity trailer, a Varanasi trailer, some gadget ad called Nano Banana Pro, and a Star Ladder Budapest Major 2025 recap. I remember thinking the internet never shivers. It never has to walk into a wind that can split your lungs. The property looked like it had been abandoned by the world, not just by its owner. White paint peeled off the farmhouse. The barn leaned. A frozen windmill stood with blades locked. Snow drifted in ridges. Deer prints crossed the drive. No human tracks. Then I saw the Scarecrow in the middle of the field, a dark silhouette against pale snow. Up close it was worse. It wore a long black overcoat like a funeral director. A real felt hat sat on a head covered by a sack tied tight at the neck with twine that looked like a noose. The coat had old stains that did not read like mud. The smell was faint but sharp, wet pennies and old hay. Then I saw the eyes and my stomach tightened. 2 small stones were set where eyes should be, pushed through the fabric in little metal cups. Diamonds, not huge, but real enough to be insane on a scarecrow. I did what I always do when a job starts to tilt into the strange. I went to process, photos, walk the perimeter, look for tracks. There were none. The snow around the post was smooth, only wind scoured. Then I noticed a thin wire running from one sleeve down into the snow toward the barn. Relief hit hard because wire means human trick. I followed it to a rusted pulley hanging just inside the barn doorway. The wire was slack, as if someone had pulled it and then let it go. Fresh scuffs marked the barn floor, but smeared like a boot had been dragged sideways on purpose. I climbed the post, loosened the twine, and lifted the sack. The smell hit first, sour and old like a flooded basement. Under the fabric was bone, a real skull with remnants of dried tissue and clumps of straw shoved into holes like stuffing. The eye sockets were empty and wrong, and I could see where something had been jammed in and forced outward to make those diamond eyes. My hands went numb. The cold stopped feeling like weather and started feeling like the air around a body. I did not run right away. I made myself look under the coat because I needed my brain to stop bargaining. Inside was not a straw frame. It was a human torso wrapped in burlap, desiccated, with husks and straw packed into cavities. Nails pinned wrists to the crossbar. Hands were hands. In that moment, my mind threw up references like a shield. American Horror Story, dead man walking, words to keep distance from the truth. But the truth was nailed up in a winter field. A small ring fell from the chest cavity into the snow, gold, plain, with a tiny diamond chip set into it. That ring made it personal. A ring means someone had a life, someone had people. Behind me, the barn door banged once hard. I spun and saw darkness and the suggestion of movement, not an animal dart, more like a person shifting weight and deciding. My phone had no signal. The field suddenly felt too wide. I backed away, then ran for my truck. From the cab, I looked back and watched the hat on the Scarecrow turn a few degrees, tracking my movement like a head following a name being spoken. I drove straight to the sheriff office. They rolled out with me, lights flashing, and we walked the property with guns and flashlights. The post was there, the wire still hung slack, the snow was pristine. The Scarecrow was gone, as if it had never existed. No footprints, no drag marks, nothing. The deputies got quiet in the way people do when they cannot say what they are thinking, but they are thinking it anyway. They kept the ring and stones I handed over, bagged as evidence, and told me to go home and not touch anything else. I tried. I went back to Omaha, locked my door, and sat under bright lights like that could keep the dark out. I tried to distract myself with games because a controlled world feels safer. Hunter Call of the Wild was my usual winter calm. It failed. Every rustle sounded like straw. I switched to Red Dead Redemption PS5, and it still failed because every empty road looked like a field edge. Round midnight, my phone pinged an Ashes of the Damned Easter egg guide. The algorithm wanted horror, so it delivered horror. I tossed the phone on the counter and noticed a single piece of straw beside it, pale and clean, pointing toward my hallway. I had not brought straw home. I had scrubbed my hands. Still it was there like a breadcrumb. Then I saw my desk drawer was open. The evidence bag was gone. I searched my apartment like a frantic animal, checking cabinets, closets, vents. I did not find the bag. I did smell that faint wet penny scent again, and I heard a soft scrape in the wall above my bedroom, slow and patient, like something learning the shape of my space. I left. I drove to my friend Jason in Council Bluffs because I needed another living human nearby. On the highway, my phone auto-played random clips until an audio segment started with "We are Charlie Kirk," and I slapped the volume down hard enough to sting. It was not about that phrase. It was about my brain already feeling hunted and every sudden voice sounding like a trigger. That night at Jason's place, I thought having another person nearby would make me sleep. It did not. I lay on his couch under a blanket that smelled like laundry soap and watched the ceiling fan spin slow. Around 2 in the morning, I heard a faint tapping at the window. Not a bird, not hail, more like fingernails finding rhythm. Jason was asleep in his bedroom. I got up, heart hammering, and pulled the curtain back. The street was empty, snow piled along the curb like dirty frosting. A plow truck idled at the corner under a yellow streetlight, and I could read the logo on the door because my eyes were locked on details like they could ground me. Snow Bear. The driver sat still, head down, as if waiting. Then the truck rolled forward without any exhaust plume, smooth as a toy, and turned out of sight. When I went back to the couch, I found a strand of straw on the carpet beside my shoe, as if it had fallen off me, even though I had shaken my clothes twice. I finally drifted into a half-sleep and had the worst kind of dream, the one that feels like a memory you did not earn. I was back in that field, but there were dozens of scarecrows, a whole crowd of them, coats fluttering, heads turning in unison. Above them, the sky was black and moving, not clouds, but a swarm of shapes, thick and living, blotting out the stars. In my dream mind, I named it a night swarm because I needed language for the sensation of being covered. The swarm poured down like insects, but sounded like straw whispering, a million dry mouths repeating one thing without words. I woke up choking, tasting hay, and stumbled to the bathroom. In the kitchen, I rinsed my mouth and stared at myself in the mirror. For a second, I thought my pupils reflected light the way diamonds do, a tiny, sharp sparkle. It vanished when I blinked, but the fear stayed. Jason listened without judging my sanity. He believed the fear in my face, even if he did not know where to put the facts. The next morning, the deputy called and told me a local historian had provided an old story tied to that property. In the early 1930s, a drifter had been caught stealing a pouch of industrial diamonds from a traveling salesman. Locals dragged the drifter into the field. They called him Dead Man, walking like it was a joke that made them feel powerful. He was found dead in winter, and the diamonds were never recovered. People told the story like it was history, but the way the deputy said it felt like he wanted the story to stay in the past. That story did not feel like trivia. It felt like a hook. I made a choice that still makes me angry at myself. I decided to go back and end it, because I could feel that hook in my ribs, like a line tied from that field straight into my chest. I drove alone in late afternoon with a shovel, headlamp, and my grandfather's hunting knife. The farmhouse looked the same. The barn door was open again. The post stood bare. But now there were marks in the snow, drag marks in a perfect circle around the post, wide enough to be deliberate. In the circle, one spot was disturbed deeper, like something had been pushed down into frozen earth. I dug until my shovel hit metal. I pulled up a rusted toolbox and pried it open. Inside was the bag. The ring and stones were back. Under them, wrapped in oily cloth, was a strip of dried skin with tiny tattooed letters. Ethan. My lungs locked. My name on skin like a claim, like a label cut from meat. The wind stopped so suddenly the silence felt like pressure. Then I heard straw whisper behind me, close. I turned and saw the Scarecrow near the barn, not in the field center anymore. It wore my black winter coat. Its hood was pulled tight. Under it, a face shape pressed outward, wrong and unfinished. The diamond eyes were in place, bright in dying light. It lifted one arm and pointed at me, a gesture so human, it made me nauseous. Then it moved, not walking in a normal way, not crunching snow. It slid forward without prints, like the ground carried it. From the barn came a dragging sound, wood scraping, like something heavy being pulled toward the doorway. I understood the twist in that second. The Scarecrow was not a decoration. It was a builder. It took pieces, names, clothes. It made itself out of whoever got close enough, and it had already started taking from me. A length of twine uncoiled from its wrist and stretched toward me like a living rope. I ran for the creek behind the property because water is honest, even when everything else lies. The creek was half frozen, black water moving under plates of ice. I skidded down the bank and threw the toolbox into the current. It splashed and sank. The Scarecrow reached the bank above me and stepped onto the ice as if rules did not apply. Dead Man walking landed in my head again, not as a phrase but as a description. I tore the diamonds out and threw them into the moving water one by one, tiny flashes swallowed by dark. Then I threw the ring. The Scarecrow made a dry rustle sound like corn stalks moving without wind and took another step, ice groaning under it but not breaking. I did the only thing that felt insane enough to work. I ripped my coat off and threw it into the current like an offering because it was wearing my coat and I needed that connection broken. The wind returned in a hard gust that knocked me sideways. The ice cracked. The Scarecrow swayed like a badly made thing held together by stubbornness. It took one more step, and the surface finally broke. It dropped into black water with a wet burlap sound, and disappeared beneath the moving ice. I did not wait. I clawed up the bank, hands cut from ice, and ran to my truck. I drove to the sheriff with torn clothes and shaking hands and told them what I did. They searched again and found the toolbox lodged under ice, empty. They found scraps of cloth caught on branches. They found no body. The report used safe words like hoax and trespass because safer words keep a town from looking too long at a field. I tried to put it behind me. I moved apartments. I stopped taking rural calls. I stopped letting my mind drift into anything that felt like a hunt. Still, straw showed up sometimes in my glove compartment or on my kitchen floor. Never enough to prove anything, always enough to remind me. Then in late March, when snow started to melt, I drove past a garden center in Omaha with spring decorations out front, bright and harmless. In the middle of it stood a scarecrow. It wore a black coat wet at the hem. Its head was burlap, but the shape underneath was too detailed. 2 stones caught sunlight where eyes should be, tiny frozen fires. It faced the road. As I passed, I felt that hook under my ribs tug once, gentle, like a reminder. And I realized the creepiest part of all, the field was not the trap. Curiosity was. The scarecrow does not guard corn, it hunts attention. It waits for the moment you step closer just to be sure, and once it recognizes you, winter is not the only thing that can follow you home.